Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, beautiful, beautiful teachers from around the world. Do say a quick hello in the chat box, just so I know. I can see you've already been messaging. Hello from, this could take me a while. Hello from Mexico. Did I see Kiev? Cool. Romania, Nicaragua, Morelia. Very nice. Dun, dun, dun. Mexico, Brazil, Oman, Honduras, Italy. Hello from Romania. Well, hello from England. I'm very, very happy to see you all. I hope you're all doing very well today. I'm not going to jump onto that. So yes, today is very exciting. Very, very exciting for me because I get to talk to you wonderful, wonderful people. The most important question of the day is, of course, how are you? How are you feeling, everybody? Excited. I'm very happy to hear it, Leonardo. Great. I would love to say hello to all your names, but there are so many so quickly. Full of beans, even better. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So today we're talking about my favorite thing in the world, which is stories. I love stories more than anything. I hope you do too. I hope your students enjoy the stories. Before we begin, quick question. Has anyone seen me before? Has anyone heard me talk before? Yes, even better. No, excellent. If you haven't heard me talk, I'm very, very happy that this is your first time. There's a first time for everything, and it's a pleasure to see you all. So I hope you'll get used to my style of talking to you all. Hello from Sri Lanka. This is a wonderfully international group. Excellent, first time. So what we're going to do today, we're looking at how mysteries and adventures in class can inspire our students. That's the goal. That's my goal. My pretty much goal in life is to encourage students to read for pleasure. Because I believe, and the research shows, that students who read for pleasure can learn a language independently and learn it faster. Which is kind of what we want, really. More importantly, they have better motivation to learn. But before we get into the goal of today's talk, I like to start with a few different things. Here's a nice simple one to get you wonderful teachers started. Easy question, easy question. The greatest, most famous English writer. Okay, Shakespeare. Shakespeare. The Big Will. Yeah, Big Willie Shakespeare. Any more? Does everyone think Shakespeare? You're very welcome for the invitation. J.K. Rowling. Ooh, interesting. Dickens. Okay. Agatha Christie. I'm with you on Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is probably my second favorite author. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yes, always time for a bit of Sherlock Holmes. Hemingway. Mark Twain was not English. Chaucer. Ooh, we've got some Chaucer fans. Even better. I love Chaucer. I understand Chaucer. John Milton. Brilliant. Roald Dahl. Okay, we have some wonderfully well-read teachers here today. So I think most people generally agree the greatest, most famous English writer is always going to be, yes, as somebody said, Big Willie Shakespeare. But what I want to talk about is not why he was great or why he was famous. It's this. How many words did he know? Oh, Conrad, nice. How many words did Shakespeare know? Easy question. He did invent many. Maybe 60,000? Okay, good guess. No idea. Perfectly good answer. The most useful phrase in the language classroom is I don't know. 1,000? You have to go up a little bit. 3,100. That's very accurate. I like it. Let's say 50,000 to 20,000. 3,000, 10,000, several thousands. Okay. I will tell you. This is why I'm here. According to research from everything that Shakespeare wrote and what we know of language at the time, Shakespeare apparently used about 20,000 words. 20,000 words. So then the next question, it is a surprise. The next question is, how many words do I know? Now, be kind to me. I'm a very sensitive soul. How many words do educated native English speakers like me, how many words do I know? Around 30,000? Okay, any more? Language is the dress of thought. I like it. Yes. 3,000? Who said 3,000? Alejandro, you think I know 3,000 words? We're going to have a conversation later. You think my vocabulary is 2,500 words? I'm doing something wrong. I will tell you, according to the research, you can go online. There are online tests where you can answer questions and it'll give you a rough estimate of your vocabulary. But my vocabulary is about at least 30,000. When I did a test, my vocabulary was about 38,000. So I know about 38,000 words, which is quite a lot. But then again, I'm a writer, so I should know a lot of words. So why are we talking about this? What's the point, ladies and gentlemen? The point is this, that I am not, and this might surprise you, I am not a better writer than Shakespeare. I'm definitely not a better writer than Shakespeare, because effective communication and storytelling is not about how many words you know, but what words you know and what you do with them. I had really interesting conversations many years ago with kindergarten teachers. If you could quickly say, how many of you, just type a quick yes, how many of you are kindergarten or primary teachers? How many of you are kindergarten or primary teachers? Just a quick yes in the chat box. Cool. Used to be. Now, do you teach nursery rhymes to students? Everyone seems to teach, the kind of famous nursery rhymes. But the problem is, if you look at, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, those words, twinkle and twinkle, they're not commonly used. They're not useful words. I mean, we only use the word twinkle to talk about stars or diamonds or the look in your lover's eye. Twinkle is not really a commonly used word. So we don't really tend to focus on nursery rhymes because it's not really that useful to the student. From a cultural point of view, really useful. But if you can create poems and songs using really, really commonly, frequently used words, then that's more effective. So this is one of the ideas when we look at kind of vocabulary in class. But that's not the main reason we're looking at today. What I really want everyone to remember is how vocabulary can help people read. So vocabulary, the idea of learning vocabulary is to support comprehension. Okay, this is the kind of main thing. Yeah, corpus linguistics, exactly. There was a study about 10 years ago from the Institute of Education, and I often talk about this because most teachers don't know about it, but that's fine. It's not your job. It's my job to do the research and your job to enjoy teaching. This study was fascinating. Now, this was not for non-native speakers. This was for English students. I love Blake, by the way. Tiger, Tiger, burning bright. So this was a study for English students, and those English students who read for pleasure, and it could be comic books, it could be novels, it could be anything, they had better maths than other students. So this is really interesting. Like, if I read, why does my mathematics ability improve? But also, it's incredible what happens to the human brain when we're reading. So being able to read for pleasure, you take in all this information and you can understand it and explain it, hopefully. And the theory was this, that the amount of work, it's like an exercise, when you're reading for pleasure, you get the dopamine, you get the enjoyment from learning something new, but you're giving your brain a huge workout. So reading for pleasure not only improves vocabulary and spelling, but also maths and critical thinking in schools. So it's a transferable skill, super useful stuff. When it comes to non-native speakers, it's a bit different, but not that different, which is the interesting part. If you're interested in reading, probably the number one book I'd recommend is Stephen Krashen's The Power of Reading. Now, Krashen wrote some quite controversial things, I think. So, ladies and gentlemen of the world, take your time and read this, and then just tell me yes or no if you agree. When second language acquirers read for pleasure, they can continue to improve in their second language without classes, without teachers, without study, and even without people to converse with. I agree, yes and no, agree, partially agree, absolutely. Depends on the person. Yeah. Yeah, I think most people would generally agree that you can continue to improve without class, because we're assuming that you've already been in class, that you've had teachers that you've studied, so that school gives you the basis. You can acquire the vocabulary in order, the comprehension skills, to then improve on your own with storybooks. Okay, what about this one? This is a bit more reading for meaning. Reading about things that matter to us is the cause of literate language development. This is a big one. Reading for meaning, reading about things that matter to us is the cause of literate language development. 100%? I don't know. I think this is a big one. I'm happy you're agreeing. The cause of literate language development? I mean, yes. Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. But it's interesting. It's really interesting. The idea that how we acquire language, comes from our focus on reading things that are relevant to us. And again, this is what, because this got me thinking when I was teaching full time. I don't know about you, but most of the reading that we do in textbooks, most of the reading that we focus our students on, it's very, very, what's the word? Not boring. It's very, very focused. It's a specific comprehension skill. You're scanning, or you're skimming, or you're looking at a grammar point or a vocabulary set. You don't really have a chance with a textbook to just read for flow. And in a lot of school systems, students will be taught they have to know every word, which is terrible from my point of view. Students, when they first see a word they don't know, they stop. They hit a brick wall and they run to the dictionary, which is a nightmare, because we want to encourage students to just read the whole thing and then try and work out what things mean. So it's a really, really interesting point, and just something to think about. But this is the book that changed how I teach. The Beatles were my teachers. I like that one, Rosina. I like that one a lot. Yeah, music is a whole different subject. I would love to talk about music in class. Or actually, that does remind me. I'm changing the subject. This might happen a few times in the next talk, in this talk today. Timing activities. Do any of you beautiful teachers, do you use songs to time activities? Yeah, I used to have a selection of songs, 2-minute songs, 3-minute songs, 4-minute songs. And then when I'd say to my students, okay, you've got 3 minutes to do this, I would play the song. Brilliant idea. Anyway, this is the quote. So we looked at the study for native students, but now we're looking at non-native students, of ELT, EFL students. So good things happen to students who read a great deal in the new language. Research shows they become, better and confident readers, obviously. Writing improves, vocabulary gets better, but here's the big things. Listening and speaking improves. Now, I couldn't believe this when I first read it. I've since, gone away and done the research, looked at the research, but reading for pleasure improves students' listening and speaking. I think a lot of people find this, well, me, find it hard to believe. You know, how can reading a book improve your listening and speaking? But the idea, yeah, extensive reading, exactly, yeah, as opposed to intensive in-class reading. But my argument would be that I don't like separating them into intensive and extensive. I like, you know, we focus, intensive reading should be a preparation for extensive reading, whereas the goal is extensive. Whereas at the moment, 80% of the focus is on intensive reading to pass your exam, to improve your ability. I think it should be the other way around. Intensive reading should be the focus to improve extensive reading. So the idea behind this is that when you read a story, you know, in your mind, you've got Harry Potter and you've got Ron Weasley, or you've got Voldemort and they're fighting, but these characters are in your head. The conversation is happening in your head. You are both the actor and the spectator. You know, you're creating, your students are creating a whole movie in their head when they're reading for pleasure. So it's an incredible, incredible thing to have these dialogues, this listening and speaking back and forth in your head. So again, this is why that I will never stop talking about the importance of reading for pleasure, because it helps students so much. Now, the way we do it is interesting. The goal, I'm going to show you something really interesting here. But I'm going to check the time first, because you might have realized I like to talk. And we are already, ladies and gentlemen, can you believe this? 20 minutes have already flown past. So I'm going to read you a story. And now this was from a student, I think she's about 11 years old, in Austria. And this was for a competition. But this student was doing an extensive reading course. Okay. So I use this as an example of, I've got two stories for you, written by, I love student stories. Students are the most creative people in the world. These students from a creative writing course wrote this. So this is called The Two Girls Who Saved the World. It was a beautiful sunny day when Clara and Maya met at the park to hang out and play at the playground. They played and talked and had a lot of fun, and everything was fine. Suddenly, they heard a terribly loud noise. There was a huge fireball directly above them in the sky. With a loud bang, the fireball hit the ground. The girls looked and saw that it was a UFO. A door opened and a green creature came out of it. At first, they thought it was friendly because it looked cute. But as the girls came closer, Clara noticed a weapon in its hand. She said to Maya, "The Martian is not friendly. It has got a weapon in its hand." Maya answered, "I'll search the internet for tips against Martians." It said, "Chocolate is a tip against Martians because they hate chocolate." Clara remembered the chocolate bar in her bag, took it out, went to it and held the chocolate bar under its nose. The Martian ran to its UFO and flew home. They saved the world. So there you go. What do you think? It's genius, right? I mean, being able to unlock that little creative part of students' brains is just my goal. And this is from like 11-year-old girl, you know, it just goes to show that creative writing courses can do incredible things. But if you look at the vocabulary, okay, some of the words are a high level, but the general structure is quite simple. It's a really funny story. I'll show you one more quite quickly before we go on to the main part of today's talk. I love it too. Okay, this is from an older boy. I think he was about 13. And this is called Today's World. So, as a teenager who lives today, my life is much more comfortable than it would have been 1,000 years ago. Trains go everywhere. Buses go even more places, and cars, well, even more than that. Today, we have computers, phones, and the internet, so it isn't necessary to yodel to your neighbor that your pet is sick. This is how you know it's in Austria, lots of yodeling. The internet is one of the most important inventions for today's world and fixes many problems. Even at school, you can search for answers like, is the dragonfly a dragon or a fly? Speaking about electronic things, I also have to mention that dishwashers, hoovers, electric ovens, and other similar things are helpful and make life easier. Regarding food, today you just have to go to a store and buy a banana. But some time ago, you needed to go to Asia, try to survive the trip, find a banana tree, and survive the banana spider to have the healthy yellow snack. But if you want to eat your banana in your own country, you needed a block of ice to keep it edible. Today, we have an invention called a fridge, which keeps everything good for a long time. So I am very happy to live today. Beautiful. What do you think? Now, this isn't a story, but I would still call this creative writing. You know, you could see this in an exam, but it's just so natural. It's natural and creative. If I saw this as an exam answer, I would be very, very happy, you know? But again, this is the kind of creative thinking that we want. It is superbly organic, exactly. So I use these as examples because these are from students who are doing have done creative writing courses and who read for pleasure a lot. So I want every student to be able to write things like this. I know English students who couldn't write like this. Okay, so today's topic is stories and using stories in class, or rather how to inspire students using stories. So the main focus is on what makes a story. And again, this has been researched for a long, long time. Kieran Egan is a really, really important person to read about if you're interested in educators and educational philosophy. So a story, the big picture. We have to engage the reader emotionally. You have to be interested, invested, and care about what you're reading. There should be a beginning, a middle, and an end, obviously. Opposites are important, but not good and evil. We're just looking at different approaches to the same thing. And some engagement with fantasy. It'll always be more interesting to talk about, for example, the past tense. When people talk about the past tense, when they're first teaching the past simple, I always see textbooks or even teachers, they say something like, you know, what did you do yesterday? Or yesterday, I went to. I bought a I ate a you know, which is fine. Normal, everyday things. I went to the supermarket, I did that. But there's no reason why you can't have, yesterday, I saw a dinosaur. The dinosaur ate my teacher, okay? There is no reason why you can't have an engagement with fantasy to practice grammar in class. No reason at all. It's our choice what the topic is. And this is how we prepare people for stories. So the focus, as you're beginning to see, intensive reading is the bedrock, the foundation for extensive reading. Hello to India. So moving on. The big practical point is how do we create activities from stories? And I will tell you. The pet ate my homework, yes. So, have you heard of Bloom? Benjamin Bloom. There's always time for a bit of Benjamin Bloom. Of course, I don't think you're the only person. Not everybody. I would be very surprised if everybody's heard of Benjamin Bloom. My background is psychology, so I've definitely heard I've written about Benjamin Bloom and his revised taxonomy. Yes, that's what we're about to do, Yogesh. So, excellent. So you'll recognize this. So Bloom, for those of you who don't know, Bloom's taxonomy is basically a way of evaluating what they called intellectual skill, which I don't like. But nonetheless, it's a very, very good way of evaluating students' abilities. The important thing is not necessarily the 6 levels. Can our students remember? Can they understand? Can they apply? Can they analyze? Can they evaluate? Can they create? The important thing for us are these sections. Can we create activities based on this pyramid? Because this is the thing that lots of teacher training talks seem to miss. How do I adapt my materials? Whatever books you're using, how do I adapt it to create this framework? What activities do I use to describe, write, tell? What activities do I need to create? And this is it is hard work for teachers to do. How do I create a question on comparing, predicting, or even translation? Examples for illustration, examples for identifying, justifying, deciding, and finally being able to create. Now, I think a lot of teachers would, when I first saw this, in teacher training, I was thinking I would never use this in class, but that's because I didn't understand it. And what I want to show you in the next 15 minutes is a pretty simple way of how we do this in class. So I'm going to show you what it is. Now, some very clever people have already remembered this is broken down into lots and hots. Now, I don't know if I agree entirely, but for the purposes of Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy, they were called lower order thinking skills and higher order thinking skills. Essentially, remembering, understanding, and applying were grouped together as a fairly simple process. Analyzing, evaluating, and creating were considered a higher order process. Now, the easiest way to remember this is just the simplest way. Lower order thinking skills are about gathering, about essentially receiving information, and then higher order thinking skills are about processing the information. And this is important for the kind of skills our students need to use. One example I always explain to teachers is this. I would say in 90% of language classrooms, teachers will sometimes start the class with a picture. There'll be a big picture on the whiteboard, on the board. And the teacher will turn to the students and say, okay, what can you see? And I hate that question, because what can you see is not testing a specific skill. It's such a big, broad question. If you say something like, how many animals are there? Or how many things are blue? What's the oldest thing? What's the biggest thing you can see? If you have a specific question, then it's much easier for students to know what to say. This is the start of class. So, my head might not be in English world. And suddenly I've got this big question of what can you see? And other people will disagree with me. They'll say, oh, but it gives students the choice to say anything. But I think students need a bit of support before they can feel comfortable to say anything. And again, it's a very similar framework to this. We want to support students to feel confident and capable before they can create. So, now this is a wonderful book written by a very nice man called Gavin. The story is this. When Rosa travels to Midnight Bay on a summer exchange program, she meets a local boy, Mako, and his father, Bull. Rosa soon discovers that sea animals in the bay have started to attack humans. And Mako is sure that something bad is happening at the big car factory along the coast. So, can Rosa and Mako solve the mystery of Midnight Bay together? Dun, dun, dun. So this is one of my mystery adventure stories, and I'm going to use this as an example of how to create activities from normal text, from stories. Yes, hots and lots can be in all sections. Very true. And I'm going to show you how. So I'm not going to read you the whole thing. I would love to, but I'm going to use the app because for all the books, we have an app with the audio, so with a professional speaker. And this is quite important. I don't expect teachers from all around the world to read to their students in every class. It's hard work. But if you have a good voice recording, with background sounds. It's much better for stimulating the students' imaginations. So listen very carefully, and we'll just hear the first couple of paragraphs of my story, Midnight Bay.
Midnight Bay by Gavin Biggs. One. California. Rosa picked up her backpack from the floor and walked out into the arrivals terminal. It wasn't really a terminal. The airport was too small for that. It was just a small hall. She checked her phone. There was no free Wi-Fi here, and roaming was expensive. She texted her mum to let her know she was okay. What time was it in England? Were they behind or ahead? They must be 7 or 8 hours ahead, so it was 3:15 p.m. back home in Bristol. It felt like a world away. Car, plane, 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 here. What time did she leave? What day was it? California was too hot. She was dressed for the English spring in jeans and a jumper. She took her jumper off and put it in her bag. She hoped that someone was waiting for her. She looked up and down the line of faces. A few people had signs with names on. "Welcome back, Ted." "We missed you, Mum." Nothing with Rosa Daniels.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop it there, I'm afraid. So, what do you think? Do you like it so far? Be nice to me. Thank you very much. You're my favorite. Okay. So the idea is this. So you've got, and I don't mind if you use other storybooks, but this is how we can use classroom readers to inspire our students. That's the purpose. So here we have the start of a story. Now, what does this have to do with Bloom's taxonomy, with lower order thinking skills, higher order thinking skills? I'll tell you. Now, with my stories, these are listening focused stories. So they're a little bit different. And even better, they are mystery and listening. And this is what I think makes the difference. So students can listen to the narration on an app or on a computer on their own. And then when you finish the chapter, you do the activities, but then you go online. And then when you go online, you answer some comprehension questions and you get given a clue. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Gavin, why do I need a clue? I will tell you why. Because at the end of every chapter, you collect a clue. And at the end of the book, these clues will point to one person. And that person is the villain, the bad guy or bad girl, the person responsible for what is happening. So this is why I love mystery and adventure. But the important thing is, how do we link it into this? So remember, remember the first thing we were looking at is activities to remember. So very simple. If I was doing this in class, I would break it down into those 6 categories for lower and higher order thinking skills. Can students remember the information? Really simple. Well, who are the main characters? What do they look like? Where's Rosa from? Nice and simple. Remember, name, describe, relate, find, list, write, tell. These are the only things we have to do. Okay. Now we're going to go up a little bit for understanding. Can students explain the ideas or make predictions? So why is she there? Why is it so hot? Where are they going? So we're taking our knowledge and we're applying it just a little bit to show understanding. Next step is to really apply it. So these kind of questions would be things like, do you want to do a summer exchange? What animals do you want to study? Where can you do that? So there's a big difference between understanding and applying. Okay. So here we're looking at examining, illustrating, or classifying, but we're focusing it. Yes, these are literal comprehension questions, but we're staging it in a very specific way. And we're staging it in a specific way because we want to encourage creative thinking for our students. Fiona, you're my new favorite person. Okay, now we're going to the higher order thinking skills. So how do we take questions from the analyze section? So explain, contrast, examine. Well, explain is quite simple. Explain what's happened. First this, then that. Rosa is tired and excited because. So this is different from understanding because we're analyzing kind of cause and effect. Did you notice anything strange about that chapter? I know I'm going through these quite quickly, so I apologize for that, but I want to go through it quite quickly because I think it is quite a simple concept, and you will have time to look through these slides later, I believe. Now we're going to evaluate, and this is a bit different. Can students assess the value of this information? For example, a summer exchange program is exciting. Traveling alone is scary. Learning about animals is useful. Now, I'm confident that nearly all teachers I've ever met would be able to do this. It would take some time, but nonetheless, having this framework and knowing which skills you're focusing on, you can have one question for each, and that would help support students. And these don't have to be big. These are a couple of minutes, for the whole thing, really. And then finally, a creative activity. This doesn't have to be, we're not asking for a story. This could be exam-based. You can take the information from a story and then use it to help students prepare a text composition for an exam. Last year on holiday, I went to. I want to learn more about. I think helping people is more important than helping animals. That's a big question. So that's it. That's the basic progress. I'm going to give you one more example. And so hopefully it'll be very clear. Can you believe, I'm going to pause for 1 second actually before I go on to the next bit. Ladies and gentlemen, 40 minutes have passed. So how are you feeling? How are you feeling? I'm going to take 10 seconds just to stop, relax, and ask all you wonderful people, are you okay? Is everything clear so far? I hope you can share it with your colleagues. Crystal clear. That's what we like to see. Clear as a bell, thanks, Leonardo. Great, great. Wonderful, okay. So far, everything has been great. It could all go wrong very quickly. Okay, moving on to the next example. So, oh, incredible, here's another book. This is called The Black Owl by, yes, a very, very nice man. Now, these are different stories. These are what we called the maze stories, where students can actually choose to go a different path in the book. So the students will have choices. They have to go this way or that way. Now, for this one, when Anna, Kim, and Leon walk into a glowing fog, they find themselves in a strange shop they've never seen before. The owner and his white owl tell them that this is the house of heroes. The house has chosen them to fight against the black owl. They can take one magical object each from the shop to use in the fight. Will the three friends accept a challenge? There's only one way to find out. So, now, remember the structure I told you before? Here it is in practice. Now, I would show my students just the picture. I would ask them to open, if it was their book, I would say, open your book, look at the picture, and here's the activity. Write 5 adjectives, 5 verbs, and 5 nouns. From this picture, you have 1 minute, go. And I might write a couple of examples. I might write 1 adjective, 1 verb, and 1 noun. Now that's it. Now this is my remember task. It's not really a remember task. It's almost like a pre-remember task. It's kind of remembering what you see, but we're looking at the skills, not the title remember. Okay, I think this is what confuses people when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy. People see this, remember, understand, and they think, oh, am I testing understanding? Am I testing memory? No, we're not. We're looking at the skills attached to each one. So now, hopefully, I've got my students engaged. They can talk to each other, but all they're doing is writing down something simple, 5 adjectives, verbs, nouns, boom, done. We're not reading the story at this point, okay? Now I'm going to say, okay, well done. Use those words that you've created to create your own sentences about the picture. And again, I would give a couple of examples. The girl in blue is bored. The boy with the guitar is confused. And it could be anything. You know, they could say the tree is tall or the tree is dead. The park is dirty. There is graffiti. Whatever, doesn't matter. There is no wrong answer. Okay, no pressure, no wrong answer. But we're pushing them just a tiny step to do a little bit more. Okay, that's step 2. Now, for the rest, really simple, okay? What are the names of the people in the picture? Now, I'm assuming they don't know at this point, they won't know the names. But if you read the text, you have to work out, you have to take the clues from the text to see who is who. Now, this doesn't work in every storybook, obviously. But here, Kim picked up an empty plastic bottle. Okay, who's doing that? Oh, we don't know. It's probably the girl with the pink hair. Leon stopped playing his guitar. Okay, we know who Leon is. I'm bored, said Anna. Well, only one of them looks bored, so that's quite easy. But now we're pushing it up. Now we're going into the kind of application, really, or understanding. Write down what each of the people are thinking. Again, no wrong answer. No wrong answer. Perfectly relaxed. Yeah, a single picture and a bit of text can be used in 100 different ways as long as you understand, as long as you have a structure for practicing skills behind it. And this is what I want more teachers to be able to do, because it's not difficult, it just takes practice. So, okay, write down what each of the people are thinking. Now, this is quite a fun one because we have, an adventure story. Now we're going to prediction. What do you think is happening in the picture? What will happen next? Now we're flipping it around. Imagine it's you and your friends in the picture. What would you say to each other? What would you do? Now, the way you organize them depends on your class. You can have it as a group. You can have people writing down ideas. You can have some ideas on the board. Doesn't matter. Whatever works for your students. And now following this pattern, we've now got task 7, which is write down the conversation between you and your friends. This is the creative aspect. So even though on Bloom's pyramid, it looks quite a big, quite like a tall hill to climb. But if you look at these 7 questions, I think, do you think your students could do these questions? I think most students can do these questions, right? So actually, the path from a picture, as long as students are interested in the story, we can pull out this kind of, creativity inside them. So yeah, what can the boy play on the guitar? That's a great question. So anyway, that's the kind of the second example. Okay. Now after we've done that, then we can go back to actually reading, and the students could read on their own, or the teacher can play the audio through the website or the app, so a downloadable app on the PC or phone. All possible. Okay. So that's nearly all I wanted to say, really. Using this framework of remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, create, remembering the skills that are required for each one. Yeah, creating an alternative ending is absolutely fine. It depends on what stage of the book you're at. I mean, these books are quite long. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I kind of wanted to go through today. This is just a fairly detailed overview of what I really, really want our students to be able to achieve and what I think we can do. Now, the kind of things I would like people to remember is this. Creative thinking can help our students in lots of different ways. And I think it gets overlooked. Not the teacher's fault. I think most schools have a very, very strong focus on exams. Perfectly normal. My argument is that you can use interesting text, interesting pictures from a story to practice skills that students will use in exams. It's just finding the time to do it is the hardest part. So if you can follow this framework, and if you have interesting stories that your students care about, then we know from the research that students will be able to understand different points of view. This is crucial. It doesn't matter if it's an English class or in any class. Empathy. Stories bring out empathy 100%, because you've got different characters doing different things for different reasons. So any activity that's based on a story can help reinforce our students' empathy. Making arguments, evaluating information, assessing information or synthesizing information from everything that you've got, creating your own opinions, organizing information. All these skills are transferable. And why this is, again, why I think that reading is the most important thing that we can encourage. Okay, final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. It's important to remember that creative thinking can be taught at all language levels. We can start this in primary class, even in not quite kindergarten, but primary definitely, basic. The specifics, I don't have time to go in today to explain the difference between primary creative thinking tasks and secondary. But yes, creative thinking can be taught at all language levels. Thinking skills are not taught on their own. You do need a framework, and you do need to be interested in the topic, which is, again, why stories come in. Scaffolded approaches, those steps, bringing students up until we know that they're comfortable and confident in creating something. Mystery and adventure is everything, but the goal is reading for pleasure. Even if you're focusing on intensive reading skills, the goal should be intensive reading for extensive reading, not the other way around. So that's fine, Marina. Farewell. Hope to see you again. Okay, we're coming to the end. There is lots of information available online, as I'm sure Lucy will send you in the chat or afterwards. We have a complete guide, a beautifully put together guide. I would love to say that the mystery clue idea was mine, but it wasn't my idea. There's a rather wonderful editor called Maria, and Maria Cleary's idea was to create this structure. So if you see her online, if you see her anywhere, say thank you to Maria. So we have a guide that explains how the listen-in mystery stories work, and how the Helbling e-zone works. So you can go online to practice comprehension and listen to the stories. Yes, zone of proximal development. Yes, good knowledge. Okay. If you're interested in more readers, we have lots. I have my Maze Stories series and my Listen In series. The guide is available for free, downloadable online. The link is, we also have the Thinking Train series and a whole range of readers from Helbling from all levels. Okay, time has flown by. So once again, I must ask you, wonderful teachers of the world, was that useful? Was that useful? Wonderful. Invaluable, I certainly hope so. Well, I am very, very happy that you have chosen to spend your time with me today, and I hope to see you all again soon. Does anyone have any quick questions for the last few minutes? Does anyone have any quick questions? If you don't have any questions, just tell me how happy you are, and I will be a very, very happy person. This can definitely be adapted for college, 100%, yeah. You're very welcome. Where do I find my inspiration for story writing? I have ideas for stories every single day. I can't stop it. Yeah, I have hundreds. When I'm walking, in the street, when I'm walking in the countryside, I'll have an idea for a story and I'll write it down. I'll write down a couple of sentences. You can easily adapt this to high schoolers if they've got some short stories in the library in college. I mean, even the questions I was using could be used for high schoolers. You would just make the creative activity a bit more advanced. And sorry, every activity a bit more advanced. Yeah, we need to be reminded of these things. I mean, some of this is quite basic. It's things that we might have done at the beginning of our careers. Authentic materials in reading, definitely something to aim for. But if you start with graded readers, it'll make your life so much easier. I think authentic materials are very useful for news reports and for music, for videos. But when it comes to reading for pleasure, starting with graded readers, because students will have that motivation, that confidence from graded readers to attack authentic materials later.